Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. Today we have a guest with us, Matt Wenberg. Matt's passion for aviation started at a very young age. He was one of those people we all envy. He was able to fly a plane before he was old enough to apply for a driving licence. Today we're going to talk to Matt about a range of experiences that he's had in his career to date, his journey from apprentice to MBA, the importance of teamwork and building relationships, producing high quality work, time management, customer service, all sorts of things that we need regardless of where we're working. We're going to talk also about his recent completion of the Kokoda Trail Challenge, which I'm most interested in, and what we won't talk about is his sad support over all of his adult life for the Parramatta football team. So, hello, Matt.
That's a bit harsh. I know we've gone through some problems, but we'll get there eventually. Hopefully I'll see a premiership in my lifetime.
Well, you know, that's probably a good indication of positive thinking. I'm very impressed.
That's right, yeah. Well, we can all live in hope, that's for sure.
That's right. Matt, can we go back to your choice of aviation? Obviously, you had that passion all of your young life. Was it
Yes.
the sort of thing that you thought you could possibly have a job in, have a career in?
That was a bit weird, actually. I always thought I was going to end up in the Army or the Navy, especially the Air Force. As time went on, I realised that was a bit more of a pipe dream and such, and then it wasn't until when I went through TAFE, the teacher there said, why don't you pick up a career as an aircraft maintenance engineer? Still get to work on aeroplanes and still in the industry that you'd want to work in, but instead of flying it, you'd be fixing them. And I was silly enough to believe it was a very good option, which it was, which it is, definitely, still, it definitely is. But yeah, then I took that up, and 14 years later, I was fixing aeroplanes.
When we talk about the influences that you get at school, were you in an area where aircraft maintenance was something that might be considered for the people that were at school?
No, definitely not. No. My passion came through flying them. I always wanted to fly them. I always wanted to be the pilot. I always wanted to, be the guy that was flying them around and fly fast. You know, every kid's dream as such. And then you wake up to the reality of how much it actually costs, and then you realise, and that's when you realise, I can't exactly afford that amount of money every single week to get my licence. So, and that's when that's like when I said the teacher turned around to me and said, why don't you try fixing him instead? You know, you get the apprenticeship, you get to be paid for it, you still get to be around them. And, you know, to this day, I've seen a lot of beautiful sights, done lots and lots and lots of flying and such in, tiny little aeroplanes that most people would think would fall out of the sky. And I do tell them, the less they know about flying, the better it is for them.
That's right, the more relaxed you can be, yeah.
That's right, yeah. Ignorance is bliss in that case, yes.
I'm interested, Matt, in the mindset. You obviously were quite passionate about being the pilot, being the man in charge.
Yep.
Was there a leap that you had to make with your thinking that made you content with the mechanical side of it?
Yeah. Once I got over the novelty of the fact of knowing how to fly and where I had to be and my circumstances when I was 17 years old, Mum and Dad helped me out as much as they could with paying for flights and stuff like that. It just got to a point where I just knew, truth be told, I was studying, when I was supposed to be studying physics in class, I actually had the physics book in front of my flying book, just so that the teacher was thinking that I was actually doing his work when I was actually still studying for flying. So my school grades weren't exactly the best. I tried, I didn't do too bad, but in saying that, they weren't exactly the best. And that's when it sort of dawned on me that it was going to be a bit out of my reach at that point in time to become a full-blown commercial pilot or a pilot in any sense. Yeah. And then I was doing navigation courses in year 11. I did my basic aeronautical knowledge test in year 12, and that was the second time I did it because by that stage I'd already had my pilot's license. It was already flying.
Yeah.
By the time it was just the time to fill in school pretty much. And my mindset it came a lot from my dad and stuff, which was, you do a job you love, you never work a day in your life. Just to be around aeroplanes, just to touch them, just to get in them, just to fix them, and hear the noise and to smell them and be around
Yeah,
them.
breathing in the avgas. Yes, I understand. Yes.
Yes, the Jet A1 and the avgas and all that type of stuff. That was definitely, just to be around it, that was enough for me, really. That's when he said, you can go and fix them and get an apprenticeship and still be paid, and you don't need all these fancy degrees or qualifications. All you have to do is just rock up to the door and say, I'm interested, and which is pretty much what I did, and it just flourished into a career pretty much.
Yeah. Having been through that experience, do you see, and now a fair bit of experience in the workforce and seeing younger people come through, do you think that approach of having the vocational study at high school, where people have definitely made a decision, is helpful longer term in their careers?
No, I think I've seen a few apprentices come through. A lot of them are very much interested in aviation, and there's some of them that have had absolutely no idea about aviation before, 6 months before they applied for an apprenticeship. And what I found is that most of them with the drive that want to learn regardless of what subject it is, they're the better ones out of everything. Yeah. I had a few guys that were highly passionate about aeroplanes, but as soon as you asked them to do tasks that were part of the job still, but weren't touching aeroplanes, they were like, no, I don't want to do it. And I was like, well, mate, it's part of your job. You've got to do it. You still got to sweep a floor. You still have to wash a plane. You still have to, get all the dirty stuff before you can come out and start doing all the really good jobs. But then there was the guys who had the passion to learn, where before you even turned around and said, jump on that broom, they're already there sweeping up.
Yeah, so
I remember turning around to one of our apprentices. I had this advice put on me was be the apprentice that when a tradesman turns around, asks for help, they're going to say, no, I want this bloke.
Yes.
To come and help you. So that's I've tried to live by that. And every apprentice I've trained, I've tried to instill that in them as well. And pretty soon there was where I was working, couldn't beat them off with a stick. You know what I mean? I had that many to choose from. It was
which is good. So what that shows is that if you are able to impart some sort of passion and love for doing a job well, then the reward is there, regardless of what the job is.
That's right. That's exactly right. If you've got the passion and drive just to be able to learn and experience and try new things, step outside of your comfort zone a bit. I found that's what gets you a bit further than, say, the person that had the passion in the first place type thing.
What's been the hardest lesson that you've learned in coming from an apprentice all the way through the ranks?
Really, dealing with people. That's the hardest thing. Processes, procedures, they stay the same over time. That's the good thing about it all. You've always got a textbook that you can follow, but not always do you follow the textbook to be able to get a job done. And what I'm saying that the hardest thing is that people do it different ways, and then you try and impart your knowledge onto some people, and you see them do it wrong, or you know that someone's trying to teach you, and you go, well, that's not really working the right way, or you try and explain to them, another way, and they just shut you down, or they don't want to do it. The hardest thing is that negotiation, more like negotiation, dealing with other people to be able to follow and get that direct outcome. That you all know where you want to finish. It's how you get there. That's the problem. Everyone butts heads on how you're going to get there, and that's the hardest thing I found throughout working, was dealing with different people, doing it different ways, in different fashions.
So what you're saying is that actually applies even when you were an apprentice, the dealing with people in the way you described it, as well as when you were supervising people, like other apprentices?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. I'll go from when I was learning. You have different tradesmen teaching you different ways of doing different things, So in effect, it feels like the goalpost was moving constantly all the time. One day you'd walk in and you start doing it, and then you'd have a new teacher or new tradesman that you're working with, and they go, no, don't do it like that. Do it like this. And you go, but the last guy said to do it like this. No, that's not how you do it. And then you go, oh, all right, I'll do it that way. And then the same thing comes back to when you're trying to teach. When I found teaching with apprentices, I teach them a certain way to do certain things, and then a different tradesman would teach you a different way of doing the exact same job. But that's when I learned just to say it all now, is that this is the way I do it, this is the way I found works the best for me. It might not necessarily work well for you, but try it, see how you go, and then, you know what, if you, and I've actually said this to a few apprentices, and I said, if you can find a better way of doing things, I'm all ears. Simple as that. Because I'm always about improving my processes and skills. You know, not necessarily do all the experienced blokes have the best ways of doing things. I found apprentices have a fresh look on what they're doing. That's how I've always found it.
All right, so what you're saying is that you've got to follow the standards, so there's certain standards to be achieved, but the way you get there is learning from others, but you also allow room for the person to come up with their own style and come up with new ways of doing things. Is that what you're saying?
That's right, yeah. You've got the direct line of where you want to be, and you know, you'll veer left and right of that line and eventually end up exactly all in the same spot, pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's an industry that's fairly well regulated safety-wise.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They say the paperwork outweighs the aeroplane. It's pretty good to fly after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that become a constraint in this continuous improvement approach that you've got?
Yes and no. Yes, because pretty much down to design and manufacturers to determine that that is the best way that you should be fixing that type of aeroplane. We know for a fact that it's got to fly. We don't know the context behind why they have to do things like they do. You know what I mean? That's a different area. We don't get that context. We just know that it has to be within a certain range, and we have to get it to that certain range and fix it within that certain range. But in saying that, it's more about the red tape, going back to what you said. No, it's good because we know where we're going, but in saying that, the red tape in between can be just very tedious and very monotonous. And like some steps you look at and you go, why am I doing that step for? Yeah. You know, I don't need to do it, but there's a reason behind why we don't know why we have to do those tests. Does that make sense?
It must be difficult to work within that or to explain to others when you're encouraging a questioning environment to have a process where they can't know the reasons.
Well, it's not so much can't know, it's the fact that I've asked several questions on that, and the answer I've always got was, don't know, that's the way they designed it. You know, I'm not an aeronautical engineer, I'm just an aircraft mechanic, you know what I mean? They're the questions you get, so you try and look up. Sometimes it's be careful what you wish for. If you ask a question, make sure you really want to know the answer before you ask it.
It's interesting for us to hear because I think with every guest we've had, with every industry that we've talked about, this has been an ongoing issue about we don't know the reasons, but we just do it because it's always been done this way, or no one can tell us why. And I'm fascinated that we continue to do that in all these industries, and we still, you know, we'll put quality improvement in place, we'll put all sorts of other systems in place, but we still fill out the forms and send off the reports without really knowing what happens to them or why we're doing it.
That's like the fixing side to it. If you want to boil it down to because with a couple of places I work, there's different sections. Like every company, not everyone does the exact same job. We all work together. So I find that company process, policies, procedures, stuff like that.
Yep.
It doesn't hurt. I find it doesn't hurt to ask even the manager, hey, why do you do this? Is there a reason behind you do this? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't want to know the intricacies.
Yeah.
I just want to know.
Just want to know the basis. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. It makes my job easier knowing that how their job sort of works, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's where you fit in the process. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I don't mind asking for the after process. You know, I don't mind people asking me that. But when it comes to actually fixing the aeroplanes and that, you know, unless you're a mathematical genius half the time, like I said, be careful of the question you ask before, you know.
You don't really want to work through the answer.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So you did your apprenticeship and you worked in the industry for a long time, and then you got to a point where you decided an MBA was necessary? Or interesting, or a challenge, or what?
A challenge. It was more of a challenge more than anything. I sort of sat back and I watched other people have degrees. My sister went out and got a degree and things like that, and I just thought, bugger it, why can't I do that? You know, I never got the chance. Like I said, my grades weren't that fantastic at school, so there was no way I was going straight to university from school either. So I just thought, why not? Why not do a degree? It's only going to be beneficial later in life. Once this one's finished and the pain and all that it's caused, I'm actually trying to think of doing another one. Much to, the destiny of my wife and stuff like that. She doesn't want me to, just knowing for the stress that it puts me through. But no, I just felt like that the only way to improve myself was to, actually get out there and do it. Having a uni degree wasn't like the be-all to end-all to me. It was never to get me financial gain. What it was more to be having just more doors that I can open later on and pick. So I do have the choice to pick and choose where I want to go, rather than be blinkered into thinking that I've only got to go within this certain range.
Having taken on the work of an MBA with a very young family and the stress that just brings by nature of what it is, do you think that it was actually better for you to do it after you've had these years of experience working, or would you have benefited more by being able to do it straight from school?
No, I would hate to think what I would have thought doing it from school, straight from school.
Yep.
Definitely the experience of having just general knowledge of how businesses actually work really did help to get into the intricacies of why businesses work they do like they do. I found that, once again, it's just the experience, because you could relate it to a lot of different things. There was a lot of times through the course what I was doing, especially the business side to it, I'd be reading a passage and I'd go, oh, okay, so that's why it happens at work. There was one point where they said about just certain things, and I thought I was weird, but actually, it wasn't the case. It was actually, a fact that people do what they do when they do it. And I read it all in the textbooks and stuff like that, and it was sort of like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, all right, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
things like that.
So in fact, by having the experience and then doing the study, you come out of it with a more fulfilled qualification?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. You feel the pieces of the puzzle fit a lot better.
Did you have anyone that was studying at the same time who didn't have work experience?
No, I don't know any people that young anymore.
So with what you said about your when you were at school and how you went there, and then having a gap and coming back to study again, how did you perform? Were you happy with your results so far?
It was daunting at first, trying to rediscover a study style. It was very hard. Tried for the first, say, five, 6 semesters. I actually tried different study styles until I finally landed one. I must admit, I really enjoyed the challenge. My grades, however, they said I had the best saying. I started doing I was getting credits and distinctions and a few high distinctions and stuff in my course and that. And someone turned around to me and said, no, you're trying too hard. So what do you mean? What do you mean I'm trying too hard? The best phrase I've heard so far when it comes to getting the uni degrees, P's make degrees. So they said, no, you're trying too hard. You only need to get a P. You don't need these credits and distinctions. And I've gone, all right, whatever. So,
look, I think the fact that you got those results, this is important because of the fact that you didn't go straight to uni, and back to what you said earlier, is by leaving it and going in the workforce, then doing your MBA, I reckon would have helped you get those high distinctions because you could relate it to real life experiences.
That's right. I mean, it's the classic case. I'm going to use military expressions. I did have a friend who, a bit of an anecdote type thing, where he was a fairly senior warrant officer who'd been in the Air Force for 20 odd years, and the thing he detested the most was these fresh, brand new lieutenants that were coming out or flying officers that were coming straight out of officers' school, bossing him around. Whether they had zero experience, they had all the book knowledge in the world, but zero experience of how to apply it. Yeah, it's the same with any industry. The experience is what gets you, it makes it more rounded, it makes it more applicable, and be able to relate to other people within the company as well. I'm not saying obviously it's not the done thing, but experience does go a long, long way. There's nothing worse than having 20 years, 30 years experience and then have someone fresh out of uni come and telling you what to do and how to do it when you've been doing it for the last 20 to 30 years.
I'd be interested to relate that back to your actual supervisory experience on the job. Is that you must have had occasions where you've had people in your team who are significantly older than you, with a lot more experience. I'm just interested in the approach that you take to manage those people, because it is an issue for, I think, most people in the workforce at some point in their lives.
That's right. There's a few blokes that were at this one company that I worked at who have been there longer than I was alive.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not that young. I like to think. You know, I'm not that old either. But no, but yeah, you're right. It was hard trying to deal with it because they were so set in their ways. And you know, this is one thing that coming back to the experience plus uni degree thing was they weren't accepting of change. You try and convince them that no, this is not the 60s anymore. You know, this is not the 70s anymore, mate. Things are done away. And,
time to move on. We've got electricity now, you know.
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much. You know, airplanes have computers in them now, believe it or not. What we found was their knowledge of how to actually fix it was second to none. You could not argue with them about that, nor did I want to. It was more about other aspects. Everybody's favourite, occupational health and safety.
Yeah. Yes. So the things that have been introduced after they had started in their working careers, you know, it wasn't so much about the practical side of it, but about the administrative side of it, shall we say?
That's probably the best thing. They were all very full of knowledge when it came to fixing aeroplanes, and you know, I took that and ran with it, you know. But when it came to, like I said, climbing up a ladder without safety gear or doing certain things within the aeroplane to make it safe, and they go, no, you know, I've done this for years, and you're like, no. Like, seriously, mate, no, can you please do it this way when I'm working with you?
Yeah.
Pretty please.
Yeah. So the approach, I guess, is that you acknowledge their genuine knowledge and experience in terms of the practical tasks, and you play on them doing something for you in terms of the other tasks that you need done.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Look after me, I'm the young bloke, just do it my way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they never say that. Never say do it my way.
But that's good, because I think that's the underlying thought that from the other side of the coin most of them would have, is that he's just asking me to do it his way, and if you're not thinking that way, then that's not going to come across.
No, and it's a lot of give and take. It's a lot of negotiation. And you know what? It's as bad as this sounds. It's actually putting a lot of responsibility back on them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Especially when a supervisor in that same position, you turn around to them and say, you make it absolutely clear that that is exactly what they want you to do. But in saying that, never be afraid to say, no, I'm not doing that, if you feel that it's either going to compromise anything to do with your job in any way whatsoever. You know, just never be afraid to say, no, I'm not doing that. I want that in writing from you before I proceed, type thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you feel that it's bad, I've never ever thought, like when it came to my job, my security, in the end, they're not putting food on my plate, it's my responsibility.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's a good
way
to put it. Matt, I think we've probably covered a fair bit already in this podcast, so we might take a break and we'll ask people to join us for another podcast where we continue this discussion, and we'll get on to the Kokoda Trail Challenge and some of the other challenges that you've had in your working career. So thanks for today so far, and please join us again for part 2 of this talk with Matt Wenberg. I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.